So I want to tell you my personal disability story. In a nutshell, it is demeaning. It is bearing your soul and your medical history to the federal government. And that process itself is very demeaning. It destroys you. It makes you come to terms with your own personal physical limitations, physical, mental, emotional, it all. It makes you come to those kind of terms. And it's a really hard process to go through. And there is no one out there who goes through the disability process and scams the system. It is too difficult. The process is extended. If you have certain conditions, you can get approved automatically on your first application. That doesn't happen very often. It's oftentimes a long, drawn out process while you're racking up credit card debt to pay for your medical bills, while you're no longer working, while you're using your life savings to survive and to eat, while you're trying to do all these other things. People lose their cars, people lose their homes, people lose their families while they are on disability and waiting for this to come through. And even then, when it does, it's not much money. It's not even, in most cases, you can't even live off of what you get for disability. So my story starts back in 2015. I was full-time employed with I worked for a major retailer. That's all I'll say about that. I went in for routine surgery, a routine splenectomy. The reasons for having to go through this again, because this is my second splenectomy, we'll get into that in another video, another process. So I went in for a routine surgery. The recovery and the surgery itself was anything but routine. Things happen during surgery. There are things we don't fully know. I don't fully know consciously. I'm sure my body knows, but my medical records do not state what actually fully happened. My husband was told certain things that are nowhere indicated in the the medical records. I had a routine splenectomy, and I had multiple spleens. I had one spleen that was growing into my diaphragm and one that was just a little imperfect. I had a lung collapse. I don't know what all else. When I woke up from surgery, I was in so much pain. I have a high tolerance for pain because of my autoimmune conditions, but waking up from that surgery, I was in so much pain. It was ridiculous. But here I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't need to go. I can go into that in other videos. But this surgery was the catalyst. Somehow I ended up with a brain injury after recovering from the surgery. I never fully recovered, and I had a brain injury, and it mostly affects my visual processing, being able to see, read, spreadsheets, which were my life. And being able to do a lot of detailed computer work. That was what I did. I also have trouble differentiating at certain times of day, light, bright, flashing lights set my head off down another track. Again, that's for another story, for another video. But it was the trigger, everything that happened there was the trigger for my applying for disability. I decided to leave my job because they were not being accommodating. They would not accommodate me in ways that I needed and the way that my doctor said that I needed to be accommodated. They refused to do anything for me. And because of that, I left my job, or what I should say was forced to leave my job. And I looked for other jobs, and it just got to be too much. I had trouble driving, I had trouble seeing, and it got worse. It didn't get better. So with help from my husband, we applied for disability in 2016. And it was a long drawn out, it's a huge application. It's a huge application. It goes into all your work history, your medical history, you have to describe what you can in your daily life and what you can do and what you can't do. And you have to explain how your condition inhibits you from being able to do certain things. And the whole thing was just, it was like bearing your soul to the federal government. It was very uncomfortable, and it felt very, very demeaning. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've been through in my career. And it was, yeah, leave it at that for that one. So we applied, and it took like 6 months, and I got a denial. The one thing I have to say is count on getting a denial every time. If you get approved without a denial, yay, celebrate that. But most of the people, from my understanding, get denied first time out, first application. It's like a cutoff. And many people, when they get to that point, don't reapply because they got rejected. It's part of the game. It's part of the game. You got to play the game. So appeal. So you got to appeal. And once you appeal, you're filling out more paperwork. And I had to have my husband help me with a lot of this paperwork because I was unable to see. A lot of it was on the computer, and I have trouble with filling things out on the computer. And this is before we were still in the process of figuring out exactly what was wrong. I mean, we'd been to a bunch of doctors and stuff, but we were still trying to figure out what all was actually going on. And how it was affecting my brain and all that. So we appealed, and it took another 1.5 years or so, maybe a year, before I got a date for a hearing with a administrative law judge, or this disability hearing. That took, and then that was like another 6 months out. So we're talking, I applied in 2016. I'm thinking it was 2018 when I finally got my hearing date. And then early 2018, and there was like that summer, July of 2018, when I actually had my hearing date, which was like July 5th, for strange date. And then radio silence until the following January or February, when I finally got my response from the hearing and was told that I was found fully favorable. And then at that point, it was still not going to kick in for another, oh gosh, I don't think I got my first payment from them until September, maybe July, somewhere like there. And I did get back pay. They determined my disability date was, they went back to, I think it was January of 2016. So thank you for that. But it was a large lump sum. I did not have an attorney to help do this. I did this on my own without an attorney. Now, there's a few things that I did and medical visits that I had, and I was trying to figure out if I could work, make a living, and it was just, my brain could not handle it. And so eventually, okay, backtrack a little bit. The back pay is a lump sum of what, there's a 6-month waiting period. And then so it didn't, the effect of the back pay didn't count like the first six months or so. And then, but you also get the Medicare with that. And then there's like a 2-year waiting period. But my 2-year waiting period had elapsed while I was going through the process. So all in all, I guess the whole process took about 3.5 years. From the time of my actual surgery with the brain injury, it was by 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It was about 5 years that it took from the brain injury until I was actually able to get disability. And disability is a fraction of what I was making before. And because of the jobs I've held and the corporate career I have had, I am at a higher end of the award level. And there are people who only get $500, $600, $700, $800 for their award for disability, which, tell me if you can live off of $1,000 or less by yourself every month. You just can't in today's society. Luckily, we had my husband had a steady job throughout the whole thing, so that made it doable. Now there are different parts to this that I want to talk about, but that's just pretty much the high level overview of the process and how long it took me, and from my date of injury. And I have lots of parts to this, from my employer not playing the game and trying to penalize me for asking for accommodations when my doctor ordered it, to the taxes of disability, to the things that physically happened to me and the tests I went through for the disability. So that's where this is today. So we'll go from there, and we'll talk to you on the next one.